Hello there, welcome to Fort Triumph Lungani Titan, and you start out the campaign mode in the village that's just marked. Now, the actual fight in the village was covered in last week's episode. Actually, sorry, it was covered in the episode 2 weeks ago, the Fort Triumph Reflection episode. It was more of a review of Fort Triumph. So I wasn't talking about the combat in the village specifically, but essentially you rescue Father Stevens, who's the only survivor of the village that the party was hired to protect. And it triggers off the campaign and introduces Claude the Agrophobicus, the necromancer who is doing stuff around the area. What you're looking at now is an encounter that I've triggered off the world map. Basically, I've seen something on the world map that I was interested in, but to investigate it, this is the well, I had to trigger an encounter. Now, you generally have a choice about triggering these encounters. You don't have to do them if you don't want to. However, there is frequently some sort of a benefit or some other feature in the area that you want to look at or gain access to. For instance, there might be a pool of magic that you want to use just to get the extra bit of money, since the magic represents money. Or there might be something there like the well that we were just curious to know what was about the well. And it triggers an encounter, so I decided to investigate the encounter. Now, these random encounters can actually be quite difficult. Some of them they can also be fairly trivial, and somewhere in between the two. So it is worthwhile being cautious in these encounters. And just because you beat the initial party of bad guys doesn't mean that there aren't more lurking in the undergrowth behind them somewhere, or triggered on another condition later on. If the party is high level, or at least up to 3rd level, which is kind of high as I've gotten so far, it is my experience these encounters can spawn quite a lot of monsters, in which case you have to be very careful about the action economy, because if one of your characters gets mobbed, they could be taken down from full health to 0 in a single round of combat without getting any response in. And once one of your tougher heroes fall in this way, it can be very, very hard to recover. So here we have the mystery as to what's going on with these goblins, and what is going on with this voice of this child, and does it need rescuing and all this sort of stuff. So but you have to be careful, and just because, like I said, you think you've cleared out the goblins is no excuse for taking risks with your party members. Now, there's a kind of a road down here, so I'm going to do the obvious thing and just march down the road. I think the paladin is close enough to the leading party members as to not be out of support range, and we bring the ranger up. Can we bring the wizard up and stay on Overwatch? Yes, we can. So now at least we have one character on Overwatch without having triggered any other characters. So, let's see, what's the best place to go? There's a well up ahead. I wonder what this has to do with the whole thing. There was a well symbol on the map as well. And I'm inclined to overuse the word well at the moment. I decided to be a bit cautious with the barbarian and not actually move up to that tree in case I triggered something else that I wasn't quite ready for. So put more characters on Overwatch, and we get the knight up, we can brace. Since we don't know what's going to happen, we can bring the ranger up and go into Overwatch. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but having somebody in Overwatch is always useful. Having two somebodies in Overwatch is even better. Now, the question is, can we bring somebody to somewhere useful? So Juliana can get to there. And we can put them into Overwatch as well. So now we just have the barbarian, and we can bring the barbarian up as well. Now we bring the knight up against the edge of the well, and that triggers a cutscene, which again can happen in some of these encounters. The cutscene can be the start of a proper encounter, or it can be at the very start of the encounter, or in the middle of the encounter. In this case, it's obviously in the middle of the encounter. So our glorious paladin's surprised that the well actually bit her, and it turns out the well is a meat-eating well at the very least. And lo and behold, we have a larger horde of goblins. So this is also one of the things you need to be careful of, because sometimes when these counter scenes trigger, you're not in a very tactically advantageous position, and you have to be quite careful as to where you put your units as soon as the bad guys have been triggered. Fortunately, I suppose, there aren't a huge number of goblins, and they're all relatively close. Now I can move the ranger back so I can get into Overwatch, and we can move the wizard into Overwatch fairly easily as well. I don't know if a clean shot in any goblin, and Overwatch is probably the best thing, so we can move the two melee combatants into locations where we can start to do stuff, but at the same time be close enough to the overwatching ranged fighters that they get the advantage of the Overwatch. Right, that's been reasonably successful so far. We have 2 Overwatches triggered, and we've gotten 2 kills with each Overwatch, so that leaves 2 remaining actors that can act outside without being affected by the Overwatch. Which is not too bad as these things go. I've seen worse, and we should be in a position now that to take some goblins out of the picture, because they have moved a little too close to some of my more powerful characters. Get within melee range, finish them off, and has 77 hit points, but that's a lot of hit points. Do we still have a goblin up? We still have a goblin scout up. So my priority would be there to get rid of the remaining goblin before I start trying to do anything with the well, because the well at the moment doesn't seem to demonstrate any ability to attack a party member. So who's next on the party sheet? It is Juliana the sleep deprived. And how far can I get her? Does she have powers active? She does. Perhaps might be better off using the power. Well, we're going to go with the lightning, so the lightning misses. We went with the wrong power. So the barbarian can more or less get there in a single move. I just need to target your man, and sometimes I have difficulty doing this. Like, I seem to be targeting... I'm not sure if I'm targeting a man there, you see them, but am I targeting the tree? It can be a problem sometimes with this difficulty. We can have some difficulty in targeting the units. I still find that I have bits of problems with the cast modes and the targeting and stuff like that. Some things you can click once and you just target them. Some of them you have to click twice. I have bits of problems with stuff like that. It's not always obvious to me as to what I should be doing, and it can take a bit of working out. It also, of course, suffers from the fundamental problem of this kind of combat, and that is clicking on the wrong tile so that you don't move quite to the location you intended to move to. So we've completed that encounter, and it's now just a question of intimidating the well into accepting their solution. They've gotten the well to bargain, and the final deal is going to be that the well is going to become a tourist attraction. So, and they're going to make money out of it, which is actually not a bad idea. Could be a fun thing to introduce into a D&D campaign, the corrupted wishing well or something along those lines. So our heroes continue on their onward march and go back into the world map again. You get a bit of a narration over what's after happening, and must check that out. Actually, this is going to be an ongoing resource for the party. Of course, I have been sort of more or less testing out this game and playing it at different levels and stuff like that, not necessarily using the same parties each time. I might not be able to check that completely out, but I saw a fancy pair of boots. And that also needs an encounter to trigger, and therefore a similar thing happens. You trigger an encounter spawns, and you have a piece of random terrain in which the encounter actually occurs. This encounter so far involves 3 goblin and shaman, but the locations aren't always necessarily, they're not necessarily in the centre of the map. You can't take anything particularly for granted in the course of any of these encounters. And as I said, some of them can be quite difficult. Some of them can be relatively easy. So we deploy our forces again to get the best possible interaction in terms of giving people cover, putting people into Overwatch and doing the maximum amount of damage at the initial stage of the game, so to speak. We haven't put anyone down, at least not just yet. So there's still 3 Goblin Shaman in the game, and they have magic and range. Now, how Juliana walked there without triggering attack of opportunity, since there seems to be at least one of the Goblin Shaman on Overwatch. That's what that target circle on the ground means. They're walking and they will trigger an Overwatch attack. But they didn't seem to do so. Whether that was a glitch in the game or not, I couldn't tell you. The other thing that I've noticed, and that I've had trouble with, is that one of the Ranger powers is a smoke bomb. And you think, which I'm looking at now, that a smoke bomb would block line of sight. I'm not too sure that it does. I have a couple of problems with the smoke bomb. I have no problem with minus 50% hit chance to units inside the smoke bomb. I have no problem with that, but I think you should block line of sight. It's reducing an attack at range from through the smoke bomb. People at the other side should hit the smoke bomb to 0 probably. They should be able to get at least that close. Although it should be less effective if you drop the smoke bomb on the enemies, because they're inside the smoke bomb and looking out, and they'd probably suffer the 50% penalty. Yeah, I think that's how I would do it. I'd have it run for a full round so that it goes from the Rangers round to the beginning of the Rangers round again in the next turn. I would have it so that it's 50-50, minus 50% penalty for targets inside, that are both inside, say melee targets or melee range, both inside the smoke bomb. Anybody looking out of the smoke bomb would be at a 50% disadvantage, and looking through would be a minus 100%. You don't see anything. It's a smoke bomb. And finally, it should be demarcated on the ground where it's persistent. So there should be a visible effect. I mean, they're doing particulate effects now. Okay, smoke can be quite a complex particulate effect, but they have burning trees and stuff like that, which is a particulate effect, and it's managing it. And it's not like they're going for photorealistic graphics. This thing isn't, or at least I can't imagine it being very graphically intensive on the CPU in like, say, how would you put it, like first-person shooter type games, or even a game like XCOM. Now, XCOM's old and the graphics fidelity isn't huge, but it's very fairly high def in comparison to this. This is a little bit more cartoony, which is deliberate. I think it's a style that the game has chosen to operate on. It's kind of iconic for the game. It's they've chosen this kind of slightly cartoony style, and they didn't. They might not have had to do so. I think the modern machines are capable of a level of graphic fidelity that's much higher than what this game is requiring. Nor do I think it's any kind of developmental issue. Like, they could have built it at more high resolution graphics. They just chose not to. They chose it because I think they want to create a certain aesthetic. It's like, this kind of fabulesque, cartoony type aesthetic, rather than hyper realistic. The game itself, the whole approach is kind of light-hearted as well. We've gotten our boots. We've given them to the paladin. Not every encounter in the open spaces is a hostile encounter, or even generates a random encounter. For instance, we just picked up the pool of magic there was nothing in it. There's a crystal there, again, there's nothing in it. It just gives you magic. And we're going to catch up with the chapter wandering by with the blue arrow on top of his head, and that's turns out to be a friendly encounter. It's doesn't generate any kind of hostility or any kind of random combat, so you can get quite a lot of the encounters are friendly. And some of the stuff that you interact with doesn't have any negative connotations. There's stuff like the wishing well there was a hostile encounter, but you didn't know it until you clicked on it. Some hostile encounters are obvious, but usually an encounter with a monster present in the encounter is going to generate a hostile encounter. But I suppose if you wait, you might get the opportunity to interact with the item, like the boots, for instance. I could have waited until there was no monster icon near it. Now, when you go into the inn, you get possibility of missions. We're just looking through the potential missions that you could do. They're all available. You just go and do them. Travel on the world map to the appropriate location, do the mission. There are 3 of them available at the beginning, and I've done the Mages in the Breach, and by God, it's a toughie. You buy potions for money, and you can recruit new characters. Now, the characters come in at first level, you just recruit them, and they're available to slot into your party slot, but you can only have 4 people in the party. It says you can have a mercenary as well, but I don't know if you can hire mercenaries at the inn or whether this is just people that pick up for specific adventures, which seems to happen as well. Some of the NPC encounters also involve friendly NPCs, so they can be hostile and friendly, so you can have allies in the fight, not just yourself and your own, or not just the party in their own, at least not all the time or every time. Well, the help is there. It's a bit sparse, but it's enough, I suppose, to get you going. And the important one is the magic is what you spend. It's a resource. It's essentially your money in the game. It's the in-game currency. That's pretty much it. I have nothing more to say about it at the moment. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and share the video with others. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Catch you all again soon. Bye for now, and I'll see you again.